Hi, everybody. This is Jim Azevedo. I'm the marketing director at Smashwords. Thank you so much for joining the presentation today. I'm going to really quickly just switch over to share some slide deck information with you. But first, I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself. I'm going to share the slides now. So, welcome. Welcome to the secrets of the best-selling indie ebook authors. Today, within the next 50 minutes or so, I'm going to reveal to you some of the best practices from the best-selling, self-published, or indie authors that have worked with Smashwords. Now, before I get into the meat of the presentation, I thought it might be interesting to give you a little bit of background on me, who I am, and Smashwords and what we're all about, just to give you some of that foundational knowledge in terms of self-publishing and self-publishing ebooks in particular. So just real quickly, this is the Cliff Notes version of my background. So I'm based here in the Silicon Valley, and that's where I met Mark Coker. Mark Coker is the founder and CEO of Smashwords, and way back in the early 90s, I met Mark while working for his public relations firm called Dovetail. And our mission at Dovetail was to get these high-tech startups and larger companies as well. Our mission was to get them as much favorable publicity as we possibly could. So I worked there with Mark at Dovetail for 8 years. And about 5 years into that, Mark had another startup called bestcalls.com that was this really neat, radical online directory of earnings conference calls that were open to the general public. And my job there, as I think it was like employee number 2, again, was to get us as much favorable publicity as I possibly could. And because I had such a good story on my hands, I was able to get us coverage everywhere in all the major global business publications, on broadcast TV, and so forth. But Best Calls was eventually acquired, and this was around the late 90s, early 2000s. If you remember, right around the internet bubble burst. And during that time, I was just completely fried. And I know Mark was too. We were just burnt out on PR, on high tech, and just burnout in general. Burnout from being stuck in corporate cubicle land. And I think both of us were looking for some type of creative expression to express our artistic capabilities. So naturally, being a young urban professional in the Silicon Valley, that meant that I joined a rock and roll band. So this was 2001, 2002, and 17 years later, the band is still together. If you're taking notes, I do not wear a chicken costume every time I play the drums. So I joined a rock band. Mark co-authored a novel called Boob Tube. So he wrote this novel with his wife, Leslie Ann. And Boob Tube is a look at the shady underbelly of Hollywood celebrity and of soap opera actors in particular, because Leslie Ann used to be a reporter for a now defunct publication called Soap Opera Weekly. And her job was to go onto the Hollywood sets and interview everybody involved in these soap operas to get an idea of what was happening in that industry. But what she quickly learned was that the real lives of the actors and the actresses were just way more ridiculous than what was happening in the soap operas themselves. So she shared this information with Mark, and Mark told her, Leslie Ann, you should really capture this stuff and write a book about it. She had never written a book at the time, and Mark hadn't either. So as a couple, they decided that this might be a fun project to do together. So they spent the next 3 years writing the book, going through revisions, hiring a professional editor. Once the manuscript was semi-finished, they started researching literary agencies. They contacted several firms. I think they contacted close to 100 literary agencies that they thought might enjoy this book. They had several of them come back who wanted to represent their title. They decided to go with a really well-respected firm out of New York called Distel and Goderich. And their agent shopped the book around and shopped the book around and shopped the book around for 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, every single major publisher of commercial women's fiction came back and said, nope, sorry, we're just not interested. Not once, but twice. So you can imagine the frustration that they both felt after having a manuscript that they both felt was really, really good, and that everyone close to them told them was really, really good, and even the agents and the publishers told them was really, really good. But what Mark learned from this experience was that the people involved in the big publishing houses are wonderful people who absolutely adored books. But even with all of their knowledge and expertise, they really had no way of knowing what books that they selected to work with were going to be the next breakout bestsellers. So because of this, they had to reject the overwhelming majority of authors and manuscripts that came their way. As a matter of fact, a couple of the publishers even told Mark and his wife that they had soap opera based books in the past, and those books performed so poorly that they were never going to take on another soap opera based book ever again. So Mark imagined that, well, gosh, if our book is as good as we feel it is, there must be thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of authors just like us who probably had their dreams dashed. Then Mark started thinking, well, what can I do to solve this problem? And that's how Smashwords was born. So if you've never heard of Smashwords before today, just real simply, Smashwords is an ebook self-publishing platform that enables authors from anywhere in the world to self-publish an ebook, to distribute their ebook to the major global online ebook retailers. And the company also offers a lot of free resources to help its authors and publishers reach more readers. So that's enough about me and Smashwords. If you have more questions about Smashwords in the comments, I'm happy to answer them. But now that you're a little familiar with Smashwords and probably other distributors like us, you may have concluded that platforms, self-publishing platforms like Smashwords make ebook publishing and distribution easy, and you would be right. But reaching readers is still really, really difficult. It's the biggest challenge that you'll have. Most books don't sell well, and that doesn't just pertain to self-published books, but traditional books as well. And I'm not telling you this to ruin your weekend. I'm telling you this to help you set expectations accordingly. And then we'll talk about best practices, because best practices are what will enable you to beat your own expectations. Let me introduce you to something called the power curve, or the power curve phenomenon. The power curve is representative of any large catalog of media, whether we're talking about music sales, record albums, or books. Over on the upper left-hand corner there, near the top there's a relatively tiny, tiny fraction of the household name authors. These are the folks that everybody has heard about, whether or not you read their books. These are the folks who are selling millions and millions of books, who probably earn millions of dollars and live on an island somewhere. Now, down in that curved area, there are many more successful authors. Maybe you've never heard of them, but these are the authors who, let's say, have been able to quit their day job and write full time, or they're earning enough to put their kids through school, or buy a new home, or buy a new car, that sort of thing. But for the vast majority of writers, they're down there on the bottom somewhere, about a mile down to the right, on that long tail. Most authors are selling maybe a book a day, maybe a book or two a week, or a month, or less. Today we're talking about best practices because there's really no such thing as a magic bullet that I'm going to tell you about today that's going to suddenly catapult you onto the bestseller list. We're talking about best practices because best practices are what are going to enable these little incremental improvements to kind of notch you over bit by bit by bit in your sales rankings and up and to the left, because any little incremental improvement you can make in the amount of books that you sell can lead to a huge improvement in your book sales rankings. Secret number one. Now, this is not going to be earth shattering to anybody out there. And when I usually present this live, people always guess what it's going to be. Can you guess? You're right. Secret number one, write a great book. Wow, what a revelation. The book publishing business always has been and always will be a word of mouth business. A great book is your best marketing. So you can spend money on marketing, and you should market your book and you should promote your book. But that marketing, it can help spark some awareness, and it could probably also help spark some sales as well. But nothing is going to help a book take off, really take off, more than reader word of mouth. Your number one priority as a self-published ebook author is to write a book that is so good it moves your readers to emotionally satisfying extremes. You're trying to not only move a reader to becoming a fan, you're trying to create super fans, because super fans are the ones who follow everything that you do. Super fans are the ones that don't just go out and tell their friends and family about this phenomenal book that they just finished. They go out and command their friends and family to go out there and purchase this great book that just changed their lives. If you're considering self-publishing for the first time, you must realize that you are becoming a publisher. So you must act like a publisher. Just a few moments ago, I said that publishers are very good at what they do. And what they do is they find good books and they turn those good books into great books. Now, that responsibility, if you self-publish, is falling on your shoulders. So you must be absolutely fanatical about the quality of your books. So before you publish, get some beta readers involved. Beta readers are those test readers. They're the ones that are going to help you uncover any snafus in your manuscript that you no longer see. Things like missing punctuation and spelling errors, because you're so close to your project, you don't see that stuff anymore. If you get beta readers involved, ensure that you go beyond your circle of family and friends, because your family and friends, they think that you're great. They're going to not want to hurt your feelings. But a beta reader, a true beta reader, will help you uncover any speed bump that can interrupt the enjoyability of your books. Also, if you have a little bit of money, if you're fortunate to have some money in your pocket that's just burning a hole in your pocket, and you're trying to decide whether or not you want to spend that money on marketing or perhaps on a professional editor, I would highly, highly encourage you to go with a professional editor, because once again, the book business is a word of mouth business. A professional editor can help you get your books flow so good that can help spark that word of mouth. Secret number two, create a superb cover image, not a decent cover image or a so-so cover image. It has to be superb. And we're going to camp out on cover images here for a while, because cover images are critically important to your success. As you all know, your cover image is going to be the first impression that your readers and your prospective fans have of you as a professional author, as a brand. Now, whether you realize it or not, all of us, every time we go online to Amazon or iBooks or Barnes and Noble, or we walk into a physical bookstore, you're rejecting book after book after book until one of those cover images just reaches out and grabs you by the collar and pulls you in and compels you to learn more about that particular book. Now, your cover image must be not only matched to your target genre, but micro-targeted to your target reader. Your cover image, if you're self-publishing, has got to be just as professional, if not better, than anything that's coming out of New York, than anything that's coming out of the big 5 publishers. But don't forget that the first time you see your cover image, you'll see it on your laptop or on your tablet, and it's going to look big and bright and beautiful, and you're going to love it. But your prospective readers, the first time they come across your cover image, it's going to be this little thumbnail postage stamp sized image on a screen, most likely next to dozens of other images about that same size. So your book cover image has to be arresting even as a small thumbnail sized image. So unless you are an artist or a graphic designer by trade, consider hiring a professional artist to help you out, because great cover images make a promise. They're both marketing and they're content. They're telling a story themselves. Let me share with you some examples here. Now, these first couple of examples are from romance authors. Those of you who may not be familiar with the romance genre, romance is the among the genre fiction. Romance authors are among the most successful authors. They are the most successful authors in the business. They're also the most prolific writers because they have to be, because their readers are among the most voracious readers in the business. I literally have met readers, romance fans who read more than 200, 250 books a year. They were going through books almost one a day. And the romance authors, they're very good at targeting and micro-targeting their readers because the genre has multiple subcategories. So, for example, Leanna Morgan, who coincidentally writes out of New Zealand, but she writes romance that takes place in Montana. Her romance is clean and wholesome, and she is communicating that to her readers, given the nice tender embrace of the couple on the cover. And notice that with this couple, there's not a lot of skin showing. Now, that's one example of clean and wholesome romance. And here's another example of a different subcategory. This is a historical romance, and Regency specifically. Take a close look at how the author is communicating that through the cover image to her readers. Notice the costuming of the characters. Notice even the decor of the room where the characters are standing. But also take note of the font styles, the font sizes, and the colors that the author is using as well. I can show you another example of a contemporary romance or something that's a little bit sexier, but for this conference, I thought it was probably better not to do that. But let's check out some other genre fiction as well. Mysteries and thrillers, crime fiction authors, they're also very good at micro-targeting their readers. So in this example, Rebecca Forster, she writes murder mysteries and crime fiction of the police procedural variety. Now, Rebecca's mysteries tend to be more on the hard-boiled variety. That means that when she depicts a crime scene, it's a little bit more graphic in its nature, and she's communicating that to her readers given the blood spattering on the upper right-hand corner of the cover image. Now, that's one example of a murder mystery and crime fiction. But here's another example. Now, clearly the author is communicating that this is a murder mystery given the body chalk outline on the cover image. But she's also clearly communicating that there's not going to be a lot of graphic detail in these crime scenes here. This is more of a cozy murder mystery. And still some more examples of genre fiction. Sci-fi. I bet everybody looking at this image within a split second concluded that, oh, this is sci-fi. It communicates action, speed, excitement. And how about this one? It's a Western. Even if I scratched off the title of the book and the author's name just by the image alone, you would conclude that this book was most likely a Western. So when you create your images, put yourself in the shoes of your readers and ask yourself, what is it that my readers are desiring? And then give it to them with your cover image. There was a research report I came across from MIT a few years back that that took a look at images. And what they found was that our brains can decipher an image, can decipher meaning from an image in about 13 milliseconds, which was literally the blink of an eye. And that was about 60,000 times faster, if I remember correctly, than how much time it takes for our brains to decipher words and text and create meaning out of that. So keep that in mind. How about some kidlit and YA examples here? I love this cover. It's depicting just a smart girl and a woman, but the author is also communicating that there's some fantasy involved given the flying girls and women in the upper right hand and left hand corners. And another one, The Captain's Kid. Take a look at the futuristic font styles of this image. I love it when there are eyes or faces within book cover images because I feel it pulls readers in. Also notice if you can see it, the shadow figure on the very, very bottom there wielding some type of a weapon like a knife. It adds some elements of danger and suspense with this cover image. And still one more. This one is obviously targeted to younger children, given the font styles and the colors. But what I love about this image is that even if this book cover image didn't even have a title on it, it's still pretty clear what this book is all about. And I think it also clearly communicates that this book isn't just meant for young children, it's also meant for the parents of young children. Still on cover images. So I told you we were going to camp out here for a while. So here's a piece of advice. Before you start to create your next cover image, or before you hire an artist to help you create your next cover image, go to an online retailer or several online retailers. Like go to Amazon, go to Apple iBooks, go to Barnes and Noble, and browse through the bestseller lists of your genre of choice. And then educate yourself. What is it about these cover images that seems to be working out there? What is it about the image itself? What is it about the font size and the font styles that the authors are choosing for their author name, for the titles of their book, and that sort of thing? And then emulate some of those best practices. Then when you get to, let's say, the second or third revision of your artwork, on your computer desktop, grab the draft of your cover image, shrink it down, and then drag it. Look at the very bottom row there. Drag the draft of your cover image onto a screen like this. How does it compare with these best-selling cover images? Does it stand up head-to-head, or is it not quite ready for prime time? And be brutally honest with yourself. If it's not quite ready, no harm, no foul. Just go back to the drawing board or go back to your artist and iterate until you get that image to a point where you just can't wait to show it to the world. Secret number 3. Ta-da! Keep writing. Never, ever stop writing. All of the best-selling authors, at least with the Smashwords platform, have deep, deep backlists of books. Every book that you write gives you the opportunity to improve your craft. The more you write, the better you will become. But every book that you produce and publish and put out into the world, it's like another fish hook in the ocean. So if you have one fish hook or one book out there, it's kind of tough for readers to discover you. It's tough for you to hook those fish. But the more books you put out into the ocean, the more hooks you put out into the ocean, they have a way of collecting and almost like becoming a net, making it easier for you to capture readers. Based on our research, series books sell better. So every year we do an annual survey where we look at our premium catalog of books. Those are the books that we distribute out to our global retail network. Last year, it was about 250,000 titles and millions of dollars in sales. And what we do is we take a really close look at this data to try to glean out little data points to help our authors and publishers sell more books. What we found is that books that are part of a series tend to sell better than standalone books. If you are an aspiring author and you're getting ready to publish for the first time, something that I've been hearing over and over and over again for the last 3 to 4 years is that the best-selling authors tend to agree that you might want to wait. If you have just one book, you might want to wait until you have 3 to 5 books ready to go. Because if you publish one book and your readers love you, but then they have to wait 6 months, 12 months, or more for that next book, they may forget about you. But if you have several books in the can ready to go, then you can release once every month or once every quarter to keep those books coming and to keep the awareness of you as an author in front of the readers that you've just secured as fans. Every book that you publish is an opportunity for you not only to get better, but to build trust with your readers. From the very moment a reader comes across your cover image, you're building trust with that reader. If you have a strong, professional quality cover image, they're going to see that image and think, that looks pretty cool. I'm going to check that book out. They go from the cover image into your book's description. Now, does your book's description, does it sound boring? Does it have grammar, spelling, and punctuation errors? Or is it intriguing? Does it pull that reader in further and compel them to make a purchase decision right there? Then, if they buy your book and you are talented enough to hold their interest and guide them from chapter 1 all the way through to the end of that book, chances are you've built trust with that reader and you've captured a fan. At that point, the next thing you want to do is connect with your readers. That's the holy grail of the book publishing business. The big publishers have been trying to figure it out forever. But the truth of the matter is, readers don't really care who publishes a book. Readers care who the author is. Nobody has a better opportunity to connect with readers than you, the author, which leads me to secret number 4. Add these sections to your back matter. In other words, don't just end your book with the end. Don't squander the opportunity to connect with your readers and your fans. So add these sections. Section number 1, about the author. It doesn't have to be a long, epic life story. Just give them a few sentences or a couple of paragraphs about who you are. They just finished your book. They love you. They're wondering, how does this person create these worlds and these characters? What makes this person's brain tick? So tell them about you, who you are, where you're from, maybe where you live now. What do you do for fun? Next, by all means, let these readers know about your other books. So just like in any print book, there's a section that says other books by this author include, and then that book lists out the other titles by that author. Well, the same holds true for ebooks, but with an ebook, you can hyperlink every one of those book titles back to your website or to your blogs. So list out those existing books, and then especially if you have a book that's upcoming as a pre-order, and we'll talk about pre-orders a little bit later as well, definitely list those books out too so that you can capture those pre-order orders. Next, put in a sample chapter or an excerpt from another one of your books or for a book that you have as a pre-order, because there is no better time to hook a reader on your next book than at the very moment they finished your current book. If a new reader just discovered you and they finished your book, they're probably really excited that, hey, I just discovered this great author. This book was fantastic. But they also may have a tinge of sadness because they finished the book and they're wondering, well, what am I going to read next? Well, help alleviate that question for them by providing a sample chapter or 2 for one of your other books. And then finally, invite the readers to connect with you, and do so by giving them several options, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or your favorite social media network of choice, your blog or your email newsletter, so that they can decide what is most comfortable for them in terms of how they will connect with you. Secret number 5. Experiment with free. So experiment with pricing your books at free. So when pricing at free first became a marketing tool, no other piece of best-selling or best practices used to freak out authors more than suggesting that they price their books at free. Because authors, rightly so, would say, why would I ever want to price my book at free? I've been working on this thing for months, or I've been working on this book for years in some cases, or longer. And doesn't free just devalue my books? But what we've found over the years is that most of the highest grossing authors at Smashwords offer at least one book for free. And here's why. Having a book out there at free, even if it's just for a little while, helps drive awareness to the other books in your backlist. If you're an aspiring author and you have maybe just one or two books that are existing right now, a free book can help alleviate any perceived financial risk that a reader may have when it comes to taking a chance on an author that they've never heard of. Free books can also lead to more reader reviews as well. If you get good, strong 4.5, and 5-star reader reviews on a free ebook, that can tell you that, well, hey, maybe it's time for me to put a price on this book. Based on our research, what we found is that on average, a book priced at free is downloaded about 33 times more than the average priced book. And for those of you who write series, pricing your series starter at free has almost become a no-brainer. What we have found based on that same research is that series that have a free series starter perform significantly better than series without a free series starter. How much better? About 66% better. So again, series that have a free series starter sell about 60% better than series without a free series starter. So if you write series and you have a series that's out there already and you have a price attached to book one, consider experimenting with pricing that series starter at free, even if it's just for a little while. See what happens. Secret number 6. Oh, this is so hugely important. Patience is extremely important. Patience is a virtue as a self-published author, as a self-published ebook author. Realize that indie ebook sales can, and they will, develop differently. Now, by example, let's say that you were fortunate enough to get a big publishing contract from a traditional publisher out of New York. And you were also fortunate enough to receive marketing support ahead of your book's release date. And you were fortunate enough to receive distribution into physical bookstores. Now, the moment that physical print book lands on that physical store shelf, the clock starts to tick. Your book on that store shelf needs to start selling very, very quickly, and it needs to start selling very, very well. Because if it doesn't start selling well within at least a couple of weeks, maybe they'll give you 30 days, but if it doesn't start selling well within that 30 days, chances are that retailer is going to remove your books from their store shelves, box it back up, and send it back to the publisher for a full refund. And at that point, you are out of print. You've just been guaranteed 0 sales. But with an ebook, it doesn't work like that. You need a big publisher to get you that distribution into those major global brick and mortar bookstores. But when it comes to ebooks, all of the major global ebook retailers, Amazon, iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and all the others, they welcome self-published ebooks with open arms. And even if your ebook doesn't start selling for a matter of weeks, months, or even years, nobody is going to force you out of print. Remember, if you are self-publishing, you are in control. You maintain total 100% creative control over your book. That means that if your book didn't start flying off the shelves as you expected it to, there are still things that you can do to help spark sales for your book. Don't think of your ebook as a static object that you publish and distribute, and then you sit back and wait for magical things to happen. It doesn't quite work like that. Think of your ebook as a seedling that you can nourish over time. If you put your book out into the world and it's not selling as quickly as you had hoped, there are things that you can do. Maybe you put your book out into the world and you overpriced it. Well, you can lower the price of that book as often as you like. Maybe you put your book out into the world and it had a less than professional looking cover image. You can upload a brand new professional cover image at any time you like. Maybe you put your book out into the world and it was not yet professionally edited. You can upload a brand new revised edition of your manuscript. If your book's description was fraught with spelling errors and typos and grammatical errors and punctuation errors, you can write a brand new, more compelling book's description. You can add keyword tags to help make your book more discoverable, more findable. There are all these little tips and tricks that you can do to help spark sales for your books. The last thing you want to do is give up. Never, ever give up, because the moment you throw your hands up in despair and unpublished, you have just guaranteed zero sales for your book. Why would you do that? Don't do that, because sometimes through nothing that you have done, sometimes luck strikes, sometimes lightning strikes. And I'll give you some examples of how this is played out for some authors. These are some sales charts from Apple iBooks. And this first chart here, notice that on the bottom of the chart, that little squiggly line down there, that's what we call a slow boil. This author was selling sometimes a couple of books a day, sometimes up to 5 books a day every day for a couple of months there. It's nothing to sneeze at. That's not bad. But it also wasn't going to place this author on any bestseller charts anytime soon. And then look what happened in December, where she had a nice blip there. What happened was her book just happened to be mentioned in a national newspaper story. The author hadn't spoken to the reporter. Her book just happened to be mentioned, and it broke out. And then it drifted back down to a slow boil, but a higher slow boil than the original slow boil. And then look what happened. Just a massive, massive breakout when the author started selling about 2,000 books a day. Now, that second breakout was due to the merchandising manager at iBooks, who happened to come across that newspaper story, read the book, and then noticed that this author was getting 4.5 and 5-star wow reviews, where readers were literally saying, "Wow, amazing!" Couldn't put the book down. Merchandising managers love that stuff, and this one decided to promote this title, and that's what led to the book breaking out big time. In this chart, notice the nice gradual climb in book sales before the book finally broke out. Now, whenever you see a gradual climb like that on a sales chart, that's a sign of just good organic growth. In other words, readers are purchasing the book, downloading it, reading it, and talking about it. And the book's gaining lots and lots of strong 4.5, 5-star reviews. That's cool, but that's not the most important chart of this. That's not the most important point of this chart. The most important point of this chart is at the bottom left. If you can see it, notice that between October and November, for a full month there, this book was literally flatlined. It had zero sales. Maybe there was one small blip, maybe one sale, which was probably the author herself or her mother, who purchased the book on day one. But then after that, nothing. The point is, if this had been a physical book sitting on a physical store shelf, that book would have been removed from the store shelves, boxed back up, and sent back to the publisher for a full refund. But ebooks have time to develop sales differently. They have time to find readers. Readers have time to find books. And remember, as a self-published ebook author, you maintain total creative control. You can do things to help spark sales for your book. In this next example here, notice the nice squiggly line there at the bottom, that nice slow boil where the author was selling several books a day, every day, before finally breaking out big time. That's nice too, but once again, that's not the most important part of the chart. The most important part of this chart is what you can't see. And what you can't see is that a full 12 months prior to this author selling anything at iBooks, she had already broken out to become a bestseller at a smaller retailer. Now, some authors may have concluded that, well, heck, if I have already broken out at this smaller retailer, then it's Apple's fault. Apple's terrible. I'm going to remove all my books from Apple and just go exclusive at this smaller retailer. But this author had the wherewithal and the wisdom to realize that, well, heck, if my books are already breaking out at a smaller retailer, but they're not really performing yet at Apple, chances are it's just a matter of time before they do start to sell at Apple. What can I do to help make my books break out? And what she did was she had a second title already existing at iBooks. She significantly dropped the title of that book, dropped the price of that title for that book. She had a third book that she was getting ready to publish. She went into the back matter of all three books, cross-promoted each so that all three of these books would be working for each other. And it was this book here that was the first to break out and become a bestseller. Secret number 7. You want to maximize availability and avoid exclusivity. Why is that? It's because as a self-published author, you have a couple of major hurdles to overcome. Hurdle number 1 is to write that phenomenal book that moves readers to emotionally satisfying extremes. But hurdle number 2 is to make your book as discoverable or as findable as you possibly can. The easiest way to make your book as findable as you possibly can is to put your books everywhere where readers go to find books. That means all of the major online ebook retailers and public libraries. Because if you decide to go exclusive at one retailer, even if it's the largest ebook retailer in the world, there are still millions and millions and millions of pairs of eyeballs who are shopping at other retailers. To them, you are invisible. You don't even exist. If you're not everywhere, if you're not visible, if you don't exist, guess what? You're not discoverable and you're not purchasable. If you have your books everywhere now, but for your next book, you're thinking of going exclusive at one retailer, you run the risk of annoying your current fans because they're used to buying your books at Barnes & Noble or iBooks. But if you decide to go exclusive at Amazon, you may annoy those readers who are used to getting your books at other places. Also, by going exclusive, you are increasing your dependence on a single retailer. So just like a financial advisor would advise you, actually a financial advisor would plead with you not to put all your eggs in one basket, the same holds true with exclusivity, because if that one retailer decides to change the rules on you, you're beholden to those rules until that exclusivity period ends. Also keep in mind that if you decide to go exclusive with one retailer, you're dramatically limiting your global reach, because whether you realize it or not, when you distribute your ebooks aren't just landing on those virtual store shelves here in the US, you're landing on virtual store shelves within all of the countries where these ebook retailers are operating dedicated ebook stores. Apple iBooks is in 51 countries already. Barnes & Noble is in at least 12 or 14 countries. Kobo has a huge Kobo has a huge international footprint. They reach about 180 countries. Amazon reaches about a couple of dozen countries. So keep that in mind when it comes to distributing your books. Secret number 8. Your pricing strategy is a lever for your success. So what do I mean by that? Well, the price you choose for your ebooks is going to impact both your unit sales, the amount of books that you sell, and your earnings, what you get to take home. Now, your unit sales multiplied by the royalty rate per book sold equals your profit. Royalty rates for self-published ebook authors generally ranges between 60 to 80% of your ebook's list price. So self-published ebook authors earn about 60 to 80% of their ebook's list price as their royalty. The list price is the price that you set. Keep in mind the benefits you have from your book sales. The first and most obvious benefit from your book sales is that you earn a little bit of money, and that's fantastic. But I would argue that the second and more important long-term benefit is that you earn a reader. And readers turn into fans, and fans can turn into super fans. So when it comes to pricing, your objective is to choose a price that helps you maximize both your unit sales and your earnings. So let's look at some more data here. Based on our data, the most common price point for self-published ebooks for both fiction and nonfiction is $2.99. And that's been the case for several years now, at least 3 or 4 years now of the annual Smashwords survey. So that's the most popular price point. That's the most common price point where authors are pricing their ebooks. But we wanted to see which prices get the most download. This is a new chart for 2017. So while most authors are pricing their books at $2.99, books priced at $3.99 and even $4.99 are performing better in the market. They're receiving more downloads than books priced at $2.99. Notice how books priced at 99 cents also do okay, but notice how books that are priced at $2.99 tend to be going down a little bit. We think that some of our authors have an opportunity to perhaps increase the price of their books and to see what happens. I also want you to notice how books priced at $3.99 and $4.99 tend to perform about 3 to 4 times better than books that are priced at $9.99 and above. 3 to 4 times more downloads than books priced at $9.99 and above. One last takeaway from this slide: books that are priced at $1.99 every year, year over year, books priced at $1.99 tend to be some kind of a black hole. They just don't perform very well. So if you're considering pricing your books at $1.99, don't. Choose 99 cents or $2.99 instead. Okay, so that's what prices get the most downloads, but what about earnings? Well, we looked at that data too. And what we found is this: books priced at $3.99 and $4.99 earn about as much as books priced at $9.99 and above. But keep in mind, books priced at $3.99 and $4.99 earn 3 to 4 times as many readers as books priced at $9.99 and above. So, to put it simply, here are the implications of that. Your take-home information is that lower-priced books sell more units. When it comes to fiction, if you had the choice to price your book between at $4.99 or $9.99, which price would you choose? Well, you would probably choose $4.99 because those books priced at $3.99 or $4.99 are going to earn just about as much as those books priced at $9.99 and above. However, those books priced at $3.99 and $4.99 are going to reach 3 to 4 times as many readers. And that alone is one of your most significant advantages if you're considering self-publishing an ebook. You have the ability to price your book significantly lower, reach more readers, and still earn more per book sold. Secret number 10. Did I skip a secret? I owe you a secret if I skipped a secret. Secret number 10. Release your next ebook as a pre-order. Now, pre-orders are something that we've been doing since 2013. And I can tell you that without question, ebook pre-orders have become the single best book launch and marketing tool that I've seen, I think that anybody has seen, since we were founded back in 2008. They work great. So if you're asking yourself, what's an ebook pre-order? Here's what it is. A pre-order is simply an advanced listing of your upcoming title at the major ebook retailers. So right now, we're working with Apple iBooks, Kobo, and Barnes & Noble, who are carrying our ebook pre-orders. So the way it works is readers reserve a copy of your upcoming book ahead of its release date. So let's say just by way of example that today happens to be January 1st and you want to release a book on April 1st. You put your book up as a pre-order on January 1st, and readers can reserve a copy of that book now. And they reserve a copy of that book by putting down their credit card numbers. However, those credit card numbers are not charged until that book is released 3 months later. This leads to a fast track to higher sales rankings and to bestseller lists. So let's explore why. Everyone knows that bestseller lists are based in part on unit sale volume. If you're selling hundreds, if not thousands of books, chances are you're going to land on a bestseller list. However, bestseller lists are weighed more heavily to the most recent sales. So books that have sold in the last 12 to 24 hours are going to weigh much more heavily than books that have sold within the last 2 weeks or 2 months. Okay? So keep this in mind. Apple iBooks in particular, Apple iBooks enables you to accumulate pre-orders, and they count all of those pre-orders as a full sale. And Apple will allow you to have a pre-order at their store for up to 12 months. What that means is that if you are super organized and you have your editorial calendar ahead of you for the next 12 months and you have some firm projects on there, you can start accumulating pre-orders today for a book that will not release for a year. That means on day one of your book being released, you have a concentration of 12 months worth of sales all hitting on day one. And that is what can cause a spike in the bestseller lists. Kobo and Barnes & Noble don't allow 12 months worth of accumulated pre-orders, and their pre-orders don't count as a full sale. It's some fraction of the sale, but it's still worth doing it at all three retailers, iBooks, Kobo, and Barnes & Noble. Amazon, by contrast, they don't count a pre-order as a sale at all, even as a percentage of a sale. So what some authors will do is they'll do their pre-orders at Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and Apple, but they won't do it at Amazon because they're afraid that if they do a pre-order at Amazon, it's going to cannibalize their first day sales at Amazon. But other authors do the pre-order at Amazon anyway for the other benefits, like buzz building and excitement and anticipation of that book coming out. So when it comes to having a pre-order at Amazon, it's really up to you, the author, to determine if you want to do that or not. Pre-orders are exciting, and I'm coming to the end of the presentation here. And now I'm going to create the cardinal sin of presentation giving, which is I'm going to read the following slides to you. But indulge me here for a second. This is why pre-orders are super duper exciting. One, based on that annual survey that we do every year, what we found is that ebooks that are born as pre-orders sell significantly better than books that are simply uploaded on release day. 7 of our top 10 bestsellers are born as pre-orders. And keep in mind that we're talking about thousands of books here. Pre-orders earn about 7 times more than books that were simply uploaded on release day. And finally, of our top 200 bestsellers in the past year, 110 of those were born as pre-orders. So here you can see that ebooks born as pre-orders are just totally owning the bestseller charts. But catch this. Hardly anybody is doing pre-orders yet. Books that were born as pre-orders are performing extremely well, but less than 13% of the books that were published out of thousands were born as ebook pre-orders. So why is that? I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Reason number one, ebook pre-orders, at least in terms of self-publishing, are still relatively new. We think that most authors don't really know that they had this ability to do that yet. And the other reason for it was when pre-orders first came on the scene as a new marketing tool, what we found was that a lot of authors who had been working on their books for a long time and had a finished manuscript and their finished cover art, they simply didn't want to hold that book from their readers. They wanted to satisfy their readers and their fans right away. But There are a couple of companies, and we're one of them, that now allow assetless pre-orders. And with an assetless pre-order, you no longer need to have a finished manuscript, and you no longer need to have finished cover art. So this is a tool for those of you who are very well organized, once again, and you have your publishing calendar set out for the next 12 months. Even if you don't have a completed manuscript, even if you don't have a completed cover art, iBooks, Barnes& and Noble, and Kobo will still accept your pre-order. That means you can start collecting pre-orders today for a book that you won't even have finished until 12 months from now. Just remember that if you do this, you always have the ability to change the date of your book's release. You always want to give yourself some buffer room. So if you think you can get your next book out 3 months from today, but you're a little worried that you might not be able to hit your deadlines, well, then schedule it for 5 months today, because if you release early, your readers will love you for it. But if you release later, if you change the date for your book to come out later, you might risk annoying your fans. So you can always change the release date of your books. Just keep in mind that if you do an assetless pre-order, platforms like ours want your final manuscript and your final cover art at least 10 business days before that book is released. Nearing the end here, if you want more secrets and advice, here are some free resources for you. The Smart Author Podcast was launched in late October, and there are podcasts that last from 25 minutes to about 40 minutes or so that cover everything from book marketing to pre-order strategies to how to market to libraries to how to do a beta reader round and that sort of thing. You can listen to it on iTunes or any other podcast platform, and some free books too. All of these books can be downloaded from any retailer out there for free. The Secrets to ebook publishing success is what this presentation was based upon. I talked about 9 or 10 best practices today. That book has 30. The Smashwords book marketing guide has 41 tips and techniques that you could read to help you reach more readers. That book is about to be completely revised, and the podcast is now talking about that marketing to help you market your books. And the style guide there is a formatting guide to help you format your original manuscript to get it prepared to become an ebook. I've gone over my time. Thank you so much for listening today. If you want to get in touch with me, there's how you can do it. I'm happy to receive an email from you, just jim@smashwords.com, whether it's today, 2 weeks from today, or 2 years from today. We don't sell anything, so I'm not going to try to sell you on our services, but I'll be happy to answer your questions. Once again, thanks so much for listening.